Is there anything that you want to get out of doing this?
Yes. I think it's just going to be nice to talk about it openly, honestly, with somebody, and someone to ask me questions that have probably never been asked before. My employer made a decision to outsource our work to India, and I got given 3 months redundancy notice. But rather than get made redundant, they ended up paying for me to go live and work in India for a couple of years and set up the outsourced operations. Well, we went to the Maldives on holiday. It was Christmas. We had 2 options. We could either come back to England and spend time with family, or we could do something ourselves, and we decided it would be a better option to bypass family and do something ourselves. So we decided to go to the Maldives because it was effectively on our doorstep. We got there Christmas Eve in the evening, which is a bit unfortunate because they celebrate Christmas in the Maldives on Christmas Eve, so we missed all the celebrations. So it was just a case of getting there and getting settled into bed and had a drink, and that was it. Then we spent Christmas Day just snorkeling and sunbathing and totally forgot it was Christmas Day. We got to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That was the idea of the holiday. It wasn't to celebrate Christmas, it was to have a break from work and spend time together. We had a water bungalow, so we had our own terrace going out into the Indian Ocean, so we just had music on, laptop playing music, had the minibar, had room service. Didn't see any other hotel guests. My ex-wife Jill got very, very, very sunburned because she did spend all day snorkeling and her back was incredibly sunburned. So Boxing Day, Christmas night, she went to bed very early. I didn't. Boxing Day morning, she woke me up because I have a habit of sleeping with one foot out of the bed. And when my foot's out of the bed, I tap it on the floor. And she assumed that the water bungalow was shaking, and she assumed it was me because I was banging my foot on the floor, which it wasn't because both my feet were in bed. And then she got up and went for breakfast. I stayed in bed because I didn't want to get up. She came back. When she came back from breakfast, she'd brought lots of bread back with her, and she went out onto the terrace and was feeding all the fish, and I stayed in bed. And then she just came into the room and said, "Graham, the water's rising really quickly." And I didn't really know what she was on about, so I got out of bed. But by the time I got out of bed, the water was now level with the water bungalow. And then within a couple of seconds, we were waist deep, chest deep. It was just getting deeper and deeper. The floor started getting ripped up underneath us. And we closed the doors and unplugged the laptop. I always remember unplugging the laptop. Weird thing, but made our way to the front of the bungalow, and everything started getting a bit crazy, and the floor was getting ripped up beneath us. And as we got out, I always remember seeing a trainer float past me, which was my Adidas Samba, and it was a gift given to me by my brother. He gifted me the Adidas Samba. I was like, oh my lord, there's me Samba. And then just as that happened, the water bungalow just imploded, and then we got dragged under the water with what was going on. And we didn't have a big wave like you might have seen on some of the footage from the time. There was not a wave. We were in the Maldives, which was quite a distance away from the epicenter. So when it hit us, which was 3 hours later, when we had the tremors, that was me banging my foot on the floor. But it was a water surge, and the water rose. I don't quote me, 15, 17, 20 foot. But in the space of 20, 30 seconds, when you're in the Maldives, which is a pretty low level island in the first place, and you're in a water bungalow on stilts, that water surge is quite high. And well, I remember Christmas night getting back, because Jill, she was in bed with sunstroke, so I went out on my own Christmas night. But when I came back, I always remember going to the toilet and sat on the toilet and thinking, this is the only solid floor in the room. Because all the other floors in the bungalow were wooden. You could see the water underneath you. But the bathroom was solid. And I just remember saying that to myself. And when we got washed away, or I got washed away, well, we both got washed away, but in different directions, I surfaced underneath something solid. And I instinctively knew, or I thought, that I was under the bathroom. Because it was the only solid thing that I'd seen the whole time. Well, the whole time. I'd only been in the Maldives 24 hours. But it was the only solid thing that was there. So I thought I was under the bathroom, and I thought I could position myself. And if I did this and launched myself in a certain direction, I would be heading back towards the island. Because our water bungalow was 100 metres off the island down little jetties. And I was right. And I did come up in between what was the bungalow and the island. Well, when I resurfaced, I seen Jill, and the place was pretty carnage. And I could see that she was clinging onto like a cushion or something. I don't know what it was, but she was clinging onto something. And I tried to swim towards her. But the currents just dragged me back under water. And then when I came out back up, I got knocked on the back of my head by something, which pushed me back under the water. But I got up quite quickly, and it was a side of a water bungalow which I grabbed hold of, but I couldn't see her then. And then the water started residing really quickly. The water was getting dragged back out to sea, so I got dragged out. And the side of the water bungalow that was holding effectively acted like a surfboard and pushed me back out and crashed into some of the bungalows that were still standing, and all I remember is getting grabbed by the scruff of my neck and pulled out of the water and thrown to the side. And I jumped up and asked, "Where's my wife gone? She was holding onto that cushion over there." And they just said to me, "She got took under the water, we don't know where she is." And I was screaming and shouting, trying to look for her. And all the bungalows that had been smashed up, and all the furniture from the beach and all the rest of it, that was all getting washed up, and it was all piling up on the side of the jetty where the seaplane landed. Then when the water started residing, I seen two members of staff jump into the water, and they were getting washed out and dragged out to sea because the water was now going back the other way. and they were screaming and shouting for help. And this is the one thing which I'll always take to my grave is I questioned whether I should help the 2 hotel staff who had jumped into the water and were now getting washed away, or did I continue looking for my wife? And it's a horrible decision to make. And I decided to stop helping my wife and to go to these hotel staff who had seen jumped into the water at the jetty where all the stuff was piling up. And we managed, me and some other guys, to get something, throw it out to them that they were able to grab. And when we were pulling them in, it turned out they had my wife, and the only reason they jumped in the water was because my wife had resurfaced at the jetty with all the other stuff that had been washed up, and they jumped in to save her. And I felt really bad because I did question whether or not to help these 2 people getting washed out to sea, because I didn't know they had my wife. Jill got very badly injured. She lost all the skin off both legs from her hips down to her knees. She got dragged through a coral reef and it just ripped all the skin off her. We got evacuated. We managed to get put on a little fishing boat with a dead body in the boat with us wrapped up, and tried to find different islands for her, but the place was in chaos, so most islands wouldn't let us on. Then we finally got to one island and they did let us off, and they took us to a health centre and she got treated. I'll never forget being in a medical unit, and the guy in the bed next to us, he had bones sticking out of his body, and I'm no medical professional, but I strongly suspected he was dead because, well, no one was treating him, and he had bones sticking out of him left, right and centre. And we just got treated. We still didn't know what was going on. And then afterwards, the hotel staff came back and said the whole island's been evacuated where we were. Everyone's now on this island in effectively a bit of a refugee camp, really. Makeshift camp at the school. But we couldn't go to that because my wife was so badly infected. But the medical unit we were on was so small. We're talking medical unit in the Maldives. It's not Manchester Royal Infirmary. And we had to leave because they had no capacity for us. But there was a government minister lived on the island. So they took us to the government minister's house. And I got Jill to bed, and then I just went to get myself a glass of water, and there was a TV, so I put a TV on. Automatically put on CNN. And then I seen all this news about the tsunami. And I was like, Christ, that's us. I goes back to her bedroom where Jill was and said, I need you to get you up and come and see the news. And she was like, I need to talk to you. I think we need to go back to England. I was like, okay, why? And she went, I think my legs are rotting. And pulled the covers back, and all the bandages around the legs were all seeping with all this green goo. And it was just the most hideous smell of rotten flesh. It's like, oh, okay. You need to come and still see the news. So I picked her up and we sat down in the lounge of this random government minister's house. And I'll never forget, she said to me, do you think this is news in the UK too? I was like, and at the time there was only 10,000 people dead. Only 10,000. 250,000 people ended up dying in it. At that point, it was only 10,000 reported dead. And I was like, well, it's on CNN. 10,000 people are dead. I think it's safe to say it's on BBC News. The following day, the Pakistani, it's very random, the Pakistani Navy turned up. And had a big warship off the coast of whatever island we were now on. And people came to the minister's house where we were and said, Navy's here, Pakistani Navy, they're going to take you to the main island. And so Jill got taken out of bed, put on a stretcher, really weird, going down to a beach on a stretcher. And then all these tiny little boats turn up with all these Navy people. I wasn't old enough to be in Dunkirk, but I always thought, was this what it was like at Dunkirk when all these boats were turning up, when they were getting all the people off the island that had been taken there? And then we got took to the big warship. Jill got taken straight to medical unit, where they tried to treat her and strip all the infection out of her legs. And then they took us to Mali, which is the capital of the Maldives. And the idea was, when we got to Mali, that Jill and I would get taken straight to hospital. But there was some confusion, and Jill and I ended up getting taken to a school. There was all the tour reps there. And we just got taken in and dumped in the middle. And in one corner, you had the Thomas Cook group, or the Cosmos group, or the Kuoni group, and the tour reps. But we booked our holiday, because we lived in India, we booked it randomly with some tourist company based in Thailand, which unfortunately no longer existed because it had been washed away. And this lady walked past me, rushed past me, and she had, might have been Thomas Cook, whatever group it was, I don't know, but I recognised it. So I grabbed her and just said, this is me, I'm Graham, this is my wife Jill. We live in India. We've flown here via Sri Lanka, which we believe has been heavily impacted by the tsunami. My wife's very injured. Our passports have gone. We've got no phones, no credit cards, no money, no clothes, no laptops, no way of getting in touch with anybody. I'm sat in the middle of a schoolyard with all this stuff going around, and I don't know how we're going to get out of it. And the lady was very shocked and didn't know what to do. But she said, I'm not going to forget about you. I'll come and find you in a minute. I just need to do something. And the next minute, all these suited blokes turned up. And one of them said to me, I'm the tourist minister for the Maldivian government. He said, I've got a satellite phone. I can get in touch with the UK. Who do you want me to phone? So he phoned back to the UK and got to my mum's house. Because they thought we were dead, to put it bluntly. My dad had already started planning my funeral. They just thought we were gone. Next minute, the phone was taken off me, and then all these cars come screaming into the schoolyard. Police cars and ambulances. And Jill was just thrown into it. And we just got whisked off to a private hospital in the Maldives. We got access to telephone, TV, food, had complete free access to the gift lounge and could take whatever I wanted and didn't have to pay for anything. Mainly Ferrero Rochers was what I've scoffed on for the next day or two. We did have a rather strange thing where there was this tap at the door one day, and staff came in and said, the Maldivian Prime Minister's here with the film crew and he'd like to talk to you. And it was one of those things, you see them all the time, well, far too frequently, unfortunately, but when there's a disaster, politicians like turning up, don't they? And talking to victims. So we had the Maldivian Prime Minister in the room with my wife in the bed and me next and a film crew asking us questions about how good the Maldives had dealt with the disaster. But then shortly afterwards, after that, the lady from the schoolyard who had the Thomas Cook t-shirt on, or whatever brand it was, she picked up on the news coverage and tracked us back to the hospital and said, I told you I wouldn't forget about you. I've found you and I've secured flights back to the UK for you. And they had 3 seats for Jill because of a damaged leg. She had to have 3 seats to lie down, and a seat for me elsewhere. The family drove down from the northwest of England down to Gatwick and picked us up and took us to Wavington Hospital instead. And we checked into Wavington Hospital. It's funny at the airport, actually, though, on the way home. There's all these people with loads of bags and flowery shirts, and we had absolutely nothing. Next minute we had a TV camera sticking stuff in our faces, video cameras in our faces, and asking us to talk about what had happened. And I hadn't really ate or slept or drank for 4 days, so I was a bit delirious. My ex-wife was off her face on morphine, to put it bluntly, so she didn't really have a clue what was going on. And we did this rather hideous interview with ITV News, but never really thought anything about it. And then we just jumped in the transport that was arranged by family and we drove up to the northwest of England straight to hospital. When it was after Jill had got treated in hospital, we had to get her in a room and all the rest of it, got her into bed, and I was like, right, I'm going to go and get us a cup of tea. So I got 2 cups of tea out the vending machine and everyone was looking at me. I was so paranoid. And it wasn't until I got back to that room and gave me missus a cup of tea and I told her what had happened and how paranoid I was. And then a nurse came in and she was like, you're very famous, you two. You're on the news every hour, on the hour, getting talked about, getting spoken to about what's happened in the tsunami. And I really didn't have any idea or I'd completely forgotten about giving this interview at Gatwick Airport. Obviously we were back in England, even though me and my ex-wife lived in India. So I had to do the obligatory 4 weeks counselling that your employer makes you do when you go through something. I was in the process of signing contracts for permanent stay in India, so it was agreed that I went back to India before my wife. So I went back after 4 weeks. She stayed in England for 4 months, purely because at the end of the day she had no skin on her legs, her skin had to grow back. So I went out before her, but we soon realised, well, it wasn't a soon realisation, we hadn't had the best marriage in the first place anyway. We realised as a result of the tsunami that we weren't supposed to be together anyway. We both like sleeping with men. And as much as you try, it's really not very conducive to a heterosexual marriage. I thought it's funny. When I went back to the Maldives a couple of years ago, my mother said to me, she said, "Yeah, do you think you should go back? You're not scared about going back?" I was like, "Well, no, because it just can't be worse than the first time I went there. And if it is worse, then that really is pretty bad luck, that." And I think it goes back to how people deal with things. It's once you've gone through it, it's easy to deal with it and easy to process it. But those who are only associated with it take a little bit longer to come round to it.